So my project, the last book, the most recent book, is called The New Metaphysicals, and it's about spirituality in America. It's an ethnography. I'm an ethnographer, which meant that I spent a lot of time, over about 2 years, hanging out with people in Cambridge, Massachusetts, people who consider themselves spiritual, not religious, although some are also religious. The project was prompted by a range of questions I had had in the prior project I had done. I had met a lot of people who were spiritual, not religious, people who had a variety of sort of what we might call odd religious beliefs, in the sense that they didn't really align with anything particularly religious, very devoted people and very interesting. So I wanted to sort of figure out, when I was looking in the literature, like what I could understand more about spiritual, not religious people, and discovered that the literature in sociology, and there was a little bit in religious studies, was very quantitative, in the sense that there were a lot of survey research. So, I mean, how do you find the spiritual, not religious people? You have to go out and find them by surveying them. It wasn't very clear, since everyone assumes that they're individualists, that they don't go participate in groups, that they don't have a certain kind of shared life together. So I had the opportunity in Cambridge to actually go out and figure out whether or not this was right. And I decided that actually it probably wasn't, because as sociologists and religious studies scholars know, or tend to say, if we don't know, we tend to explore, is the ways that religious ideas or spiritual ideas are actually learned and taught, that we don't usually think of this as stuff that people just sort of experience without some kind of social or cultural connection or relationship. So in Cambridge I went, and I discovered actually that many of the people who are spiritual, not religious, are in fact, very involved in all kinds of group practices, or are there partaking in certain kinds of classes and so on, where they actually are learning to be spiritual. So they also learn to say that they aren't learning. They actually learn to say that they're individualists and they're following their own path. So it's really hard sometimes, actually, through interviews alone, or through surveys, to actually understand where the sort of social support for these kinds of spiritual identities are being developed. And that's what ethnography actually allowed me to do, to say, okay, here are the institutions, and here are the spaces, here are the settings, and here are their connections to a longer range of American religious ideas about freedom, and about individualism, and about prosperity, and all of these things. So that's what the project was, and I think it was actually quite a timely project, in the sense that while I was doing the research, there was, in this ethnographic way, there was a body of research that was also building on the quantitative side, that shows that there's been a remarkable boom in the number of Americans who say that they are spiritual, not religious. So in the last 30 years, it's gone from something, people who say they have no religious preference yet still believe in God, has gone from something around 5% of the population to now over 20% of the population, or close to, depending on which of these surveys you're looking at. So this book actually is important, in the sense that it provides some context and a way to think about the shifts that we see, and the experiences that many Americans are having, and they say that they're spiritual, not religious. So that's the beginning of an answer to that question.